Hi, it's Damon Clark from PI Hacks. So this month, I read an amazing article in the Harvard Business Review regarding how to turn talent into organizational excellence. And that was by James Fulton and Todd Warren. And on a side note, if you haven't already subscribed to a Harvard Business Review, if you work in leadership or team development and strategy, it is just awesome. And yeah, it's the highlight of my month. I kind of learned so much from it. But anyway, the article was awesome. Basically explores how to retain and engage top talent in your organization and make sure we don't lose them. And traditionally, how we do that is we kind of put them on high performing training courses and invest in them that way. But the article kind of explores ways to expose them to senior leadership and give that kind of real time exposure to training, or more realistic rather than training courses. And that was one of their highlights. And I just wanted to kind of talk about how we often recommend our clients do this predictive index. So we've been suggesting this in a variety of ways for a few years now. And I just wanted to share two ideas with you, which I think you'll find really useful. The first one is meetings. So when we work with our leadership teams, we often discover a number of challenges they have, and it's usually the same things. And often it's they don't have a robust way to develop, implement, and track strategy. They struggle with high dominant behavior in that team. They don't have a long-term plan for development. And another one is a challenge they often have is meetings. They're not very good at running meetings. And when we dig into that, it's usually a few things. They don't split up tactical and strategic meetings. They don't have a set process or operating procedures to run those meetings. And they often skip them when tactical stuff comes up, particularly very strategic meetings when they shouldn't. So, and lastly, the wrong persons often chair those meetings. What we typically find is when we talk PI language, the chair, the CEO or the leader is often the person that chairs. And we all too often find that those behaviors in those CEOs are usually high dominance, high extroversion, low patience, low formality. So high A, high B, high C, high D in PI language. Not always. And that's not to say those leaders make better leaders. It's just often, we find that. Sometimes that D, that formality is situational, but we typically find a lot of high A, high B leaders and low C. So the challenge in that, if we think about it, and let's unpick that behavior, we've got high dominance. So they like to insert their influence on people and events. And the behavior behind that is probably quite combative. They, push their opinion because they think they're right. For B, so the extroversion, at high extroversion, they kind of talk out loud. And at low patience, they're going to be fast moving, not too worried about sticking to a process. And that situational to low formality, they're not going to kind of follow a process. And then if we dig into those factor combinations, we've got proactive, comfortable with risk, which can be dangerous. We need those CFOs to pump on those brakes. We've got, not too worried about the detail, super fast paced. And that for a meeting, particularly a chair, cannot be the best behavior for a chair. And the impact it can have, for example, those low Bs, they're going to want a process and some data. They're going to want the agenda because they reflect on decisions. And that type of leader may not be too focused on that. High A, high B, low C, low D leader may not be too focused on setting that systematic structure up, providing the detail ahead of time. So those low Bs may struggle. The high Ds may get frustrated because of that lack of process. And, you get that artificial harmony, etc. So there's a lot of stuff we can unpick there. The point is the leader isn't necessarily the perfect person to be chairing a meeting. We really want to think about a behavioral profile, what would be. And I'd love to hear your comments below, but I'm kind of thinking maybe some situational primary factors. So I'm happy for the A to be situational, so they can stretch and assert influence when they need to keep things on track. But really, we want someone probably more to the left, more collaborative. For B, I would be happy with a low B. Someone who's going to listen a lot. With that C, looking at that patience, I'm quite liking a high C. So we have that consistency, that flow, that structure. We teach a level 10 EOS format where you have a very much set structure of how you run a meeting. So everyone gets a turn to, for example, leadership issues to identify, discuss, and solve. So a high C would be a good at keeping that process on track. And for D, again, a high D. Again, that kind of process. So on the C, we've got consistency. We don't like change. We're going to be very patient and calm. And at D, they're going to follow a kind of set of rules. So I'd love to hear your comments below, but I'm thinking a lot of the profiles I see chair of the meetings aren't right profiles. And this comes on to my idea about how we can bring in some bench strength lower down in the organization. So if you've got some high performers, maybe of a profile that is more suited for managing meetings, maybe collaborators, strategists, I would expose them. And it may seem a bit awkward. Well, why would we put someone more junior, maybe even 2 levels down, to chair a meeting when you're talking about quite serious issues and leadership issues? If they're a high performer, it's just a great way to expose them to those very strategic discussions, give them exposure to mentors, and a really great way to retain them and show them there's a path to progress within the company. So that's my first idea. A really good idea is don't think about someone in your leadership team, your senior leadership team necessarily has to chair the meeting. It could be some bench strength. Often, by the way, like chief of staffs, this is a good chief of staff role as well. If you're a certain size organization, another thing that often comes up when we work leadership teams is that they need a chief of staff, and that would be a good profile or a good person to chair these meetings. So that's the first idea is to elevate those people to chair for meetings. And the second one feeds into our head, heart, briefcase methodology for hiring. So we do a lot of hiring in Predictive Index. We try and get the right people on the right seats. And what we're trying to do with behavioral hiring is we're trying to improve job success predictability by using some data. And what we do at PI is we use behavioral data and cognitive data, which is the number one predictor of job success. We don't just want to use Predictive Index, though. We also want to use some other data. And this is what we call our interviewing the whole person methodology, or head, heart, briefcase. We want to use the head, which is behavioral and cognitive data. We want to use the heart, so that's kind of values fit. And we want to use a briefcase, which is your qualifications, skills, and experience. Now, usually, most organizations are just using a briefcase. But what we want to try and do is take all that data, quantify it, and that's where we're really going to make better hiring decisions. Your hiring managers will often tell you that their gut makes a better hiring decision. It does not. It absolutely does not. You want to develop a system like Head, Heart, Briefcase, which is really going to kind of help you make hires. And the cost of bad hires is crazy. And I've got a turnover cost calculator in the comments below you want to check out, and it will surprise you how much a bad hire can cost you. So moving on to how we can elevate some high-performing staff to help with this. On the values bit, it's really important to use values in interviewing. And actually, across your whole organization, we want to hire on your values. We want to do performance reviews on your values, and we want to fire on your values. We want leadership. This is a great exercise we do. We want them to kind of share the values and do thought leadership on the values. And one of the biggest things we discover is the lack of companies really embracing our values and using them the way they should do. It's a lot of work we do. And we have a separate mission, vision, values workshop we do. Get in contact if you want to know more about that. But what we can do with the values is we can get one of those more high-performing employees into the interview and do a separate interview on values. And how that looks like, maybe your values is transparency. It would be, can you give me an example of transparency? And we want to put a number on that. And then we can put all that data. Actually, we've got an app we're just launching, which actually looks at those data sets. So I'm going to include it At this time, I will hopefully launch him this week, but I'll try and put the app in the comments. And we use all that data to make a better hiring decision. Now, think about it. That's a win-win-win for everybody. It's a win for that candidate because they're going to meet someone else in the organization, not just the senior people. And that's just going to give them some insight and an opportunity to discuss someone at a different part of the organization. It's a win for the organization because you're getting another data set to really make a good hiring decision on. And it's also a win for that high performer because they're getting exposure to interviewing senior people. And it's a great little extra initiative to engage them on. And it's going to help with their engagement and retention. So that's the second way we can really use predictive index. And although this is the values interview, but it's our predictive index methodology for hiring, a great way to kind of bring in and nurture that high performing talent. So I hope that was useful. I've included the article. We've written a blog on this, and I got more details on Head Heart Briefcase and how to run that in the comments below. But yeah, read the Harvard Business Review article, read our blog. I hope this is useful. If you could also suggest other ways you can engage high potential talent in your organization to try and really help with that engagement and retention, pop in the comments below. It'd be really useful. Thanks a lot. I hope that was useful. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.